I think there's a chance, if I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, that I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton.
CNN's K-File unearthed Twitter direct messages sent by Vance in 2017 in which the author called Trump a quote-unquote moral disaster whose administration had, quote, no domestic policy agenda besides tax cuts. And in a since-deleted tweet from 2017, Vance said this, quote, in 4 years, I hope people remember that it was those of us who empathized with Trump's voters who fought him the most aggressively.
Sure. Well, like a lot of people, I criticized Trump back in 2016, and I'd ask folks not to judge me based on what I said in 2016, because I've been very open about the fact that I did say those critical things, and I regret them, and I regret being wrong about the guy. I think that he was a good president. I think he made a lot of good decisions for people, and I think he took a lot of flack. And as you probably appreciate, Alicia, you know, I've taken a lot of flack myself over the last few years for standing up for the president's voters, but also standing up for the agenda.
You've been mentioned as the possible vice president for Donald Trump. Had you been vice president on January 6th, would you have certified the election results?
Oh, George, this is such a ridiculous question, in part because the law has changed here.
I know you say that you two haven't discussed the vice presidency directly, but you said you'd certainly be open to it if he did offer it to you. Considering that, does it give you any pause whatsoever about taking that job when you see how he treated his last vice president?
Caitlin, I'm extremely skeptical that Mike Pence's life was ever in danger. I think politics people like to really exaggerate things from time to time.
On the stage, Donald Trump said to J.D. Vance, all you do is kiss my to get my support.
J.D. is kissing my he wants my support. I think he's running J.D. on an I love Donald Trump policy. Yeah, he said some bad things about me, but that was before he knew me, and then he fell in love.
We need leaders who have courage to take on their own party, and I've proven that, and he was called a kisser by the former president.
Yeah, John, so I'm very pro-life and not ashamed of it. Of course, you have to have some reasonable exceptions here, but I just want to save as many lives as possible. I think that's the goal of a pro-life policy.
So let me just drill down on that. You said reasonable exceptions. What exceptions are reasonable to you?
Well, look, I think it's always hard to say every single possible exception. My goal, like I said, John, is to save as many lives as possible, to try to protect as many unborn babies as possible.
I'm going to move on, but one last chance for voters to hear what those exceptions might be.
Look, guys, I think that like I said, one obvious exception, of course, is you got to make sure that, you know, you have life of the mother protected. There are other exceptions as well. Okay. My view is we want to save as many lives as possible.
This is one of the great tricks that I think the sexual revolution pulled on the American populace, which is this idea that, like, well, okay, these marriages were fundamentally, you know, they were maybe even violent, but certainly they were unhappy. And so getting rid of them and making it easier for people to shift spouses like they change their underwear, that's going to make people happier in the long term. And maybe it worked out for the moms and dads, though I'm skeptical, but it really didn't work out for the kids of those marriages.
If mandatory masking were going to save our citizens, it would have already done so. I would like the freedom of airline passengers to be able to go and visit their families and not be thrown off an airplane because they refuse to wear a mask. Freedom is fundamentally about respecting that you might have a different view than I do. Mr. President, as of in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S2738, the Freedom to Breathe Act, which is at desk.
This bill is a red herring. It is a false debate. We should have an aquarium down in the well of the Senate to capture all the red herrings that are being introduced into this public health debate. It's a distraction, it's misleading, and it is meant to deflect from what the GOP really stands for right now, gimmicks over people. But the only thing that the Republicans seem willing to mask is their antipathy for making health care affordable and acceptable for millions of Americans. Republicans already fought this year to throw people off of Medicaid and their health coverage. Not a single Republican voted to make insulin and other medications more affordable for seniors. Republicans have blocked legislation to protect the right of individuals to make health care decisions with their doctors. It makes no sense to put limits on how communities and individuals can protect themselves.